Andy.
Hello, Adam.
Welcome to my channel. This is Andy Ferris, and I am Andy Ferris. Welcome to the Andy Ferris channel. This is an acoustic guitar, and we're going to talk about microphones. Let's go.
Hi. Yes, MK4, large diaphragm condenser microphone.
Yes, indeed. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a wonderful Yamaha guitar at 42 Gear Street 5. I should mention that at the top of the video, which is why this is not my set. This is not my guitarist. But hi! And so what we're going to do is start off with kind of a regular miking setup, and we're going to then talk about two microphones and why you would use them and what you can get out of that. So, we're going to begin by hitting my head on the microphone and start with the vanilla position. So 12-ish inches, if we can get one of those cameras. Maybe a little
further. That's...
Yeah, I tend to go just more than a hand span away from the 12th fret because, and this is the important thing, I think of the sound, like we said in Andy's video on his channel, but I don't know whether that's out yet or not.
Yes. Or not.
I think about the sound picking up as a bubble. So that will expand, and so the further away you are, the more you will capture, including the room and all that kind of stuff. So you have to be in a very decent sounding room for a decent sounding recording. But for a single mic, that means I'm roughly getting this. So if you could give us a demo.
I'll try it again.
Very nice. Now, if I was doing like a big pop song with big jangly stuff, what I would do is have just one microphone and record it twice, hard pan it left and right, because then two completely different performances make it stand out. But a lot of the time that isn't going to work. Let's say it's a nice acoustic ballad or something and you still want some width. Then we start getting into using the power of two. And this is the MK8. Which is twice the price, but in the setting I'm going to use it in to begin with, it's basically the same as the MK4. We'll come to why it's more expensive later, because for the argument of what I'm going to do first, which is an XY pattern, we could use the same microphone twice. Because what I want to do first to get a big stereo sound is have these right next to each other and then point one of them over this way and one of them over that way. The idea being these are technically in the same place as far as physics is concerned, so you should, in theory, get the same balance, the same position, the same idea.
Right.
But it's almost as if you've got a left ear and a right ear, so it's going to spread kind of the jangly top end one way and the boomy low end another way.
Okay.
But if everything is set equally and in the same kind of place, we shouldn't get too far from what we just had.
What about height? So I can't really see from where I'm sitting where they are.
So, well, they should be as roughly close as you can get them. I left a tiny gap there just for safety's sake because this is Henning's studio and I don't really like clacking microphones together. And the gravity stands are kind of geared, which makes them kind of click, click, click. But these, as far as I'm concerned, are close enough that they almost act as one.
But I meant, height in relation to the guitar.
Oh!
So this midpoint, in between the mics, where is that? Is that in the middle of the fretboard, or is it...
I tend to go there, but generally speaking, there is no bad sound, but the further away from pointing at the strings you go, generally the darker a sound you'll get. Because as you go off the center of the pickup pattern, it picks up less and less and less high end.
Right.
That's part of the cardioid pickup. If you look at the kind of the graphs that come with microphones, you'll see loads of different lines and they become more omnidirectional and that kind of... So it matters a little bit less. But yeah, for the sake of an inch or two, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference at this distance, and even less so further away. If we start getting closer, then small measurements make bigger changes.
Right.
But yeah, if we can hear this as an XY pattern. Cool. And that's the kind of sound I would use on something like a folk song where there's a vocal going over the top, but I don't want it to be like epically cinematic or anything. I just want it to feel like I'm with the guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
Then we start getting onto the cinematic kind of stuff, which is when we start moving further apart.
When you say cinematic, do you mean...
Ultra wide, larger
Okay.
than life, feels like you've got a 10-foot wide guitar, really sounds...
It's the dream.
Yeah. And for certain genres, you do kind of want that kind of, massive sound.
I've always struggled with getting that sound, like imagining the guitar big and then a vocal in the centre.
Yes.
So is that the sort of thing we're aiming for?
Exactly, because the further away we take the mics from the centre, the more we'll get kind of a difference and less in common in the middle.
Are we also panning these in the mixing?
Completely left and right each, yeah.
Completely?
Yes, because even though one's hard left, one's hard right, because they're on the same source, they have a lot in common, so it won't feel like they're out here somewhere.
Right.
It will just feel like... Yeah, especially on the XY, they have to be 100% left and right to make it work, but it'll sound kind of like the left is here and the right is here, because that's what the microphone's picking up.
Sure.
But doing this, the further and further you physically move the microphones, the wider the guitar's going to sound, because it starts to become an unrealistic representation.
Right.
But if that's what you want, great.
Okay, let's have a whirl.
So this one is aimed pretty much at where the left hand's going to be, so the head and the strings, and this one's aimed more at the body because I had to go beyond the sound hole to not get that woof.
Mm-hmm.
So it's roughly at the bridge. Again, if I had more time in the studio, what I'd be doing is I'd be in the control room evaluating and shuffling around a little bit.
Are there any rules, like with relation to distance from source to distance between microphones?
There are some people who have standards like that. I personally don't. Generally, I try and keep the distance from the guitar to the microphone roughly equal so that the phase is about right.
Mm-hmm.
But phase is a whole complicated process where it's different per frequency.
Right.
So we're looking for time alignment, really, of just roughly, does the sound radiating hit the microphones at roughly the same time? Because if it doesn't, you'll feel like it starts to pull the guitar to one side.
Mm-hmm.
Because it hits one ear first, then the other. Your brain interprets that as the guitar's further away on the later side.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, can be a nice little studio trick. If you want two guitars and want them to sound huge, you can have one mic further back, and that'll pull it to one side. Record another one the other way around, and that'll pull to the other side.
Right.
Massive sound. Again, completely unrealistic. But art is not always about realism.
Should we try it?
Let's try it. Nice. Now, another thing that I can do, probably to round the video out, is starting to get into advanced miking techniques. Some acoustic guitarists that I've worked with insist on singing at the same time because the tempo and the feel and all that kind of stuff is integral to their performance. But what I really want is to have some separation between the two, because a big warm vocal tends to need the mic to be quite close, but then you're not getting much guitar. I might want the guitar to sound quite big but also separate. I might want to EQ one of them. It becomes a nightmare. So what I tend to do is start to use multi-pattern mics, because changing the patterns, so far these have both been cardioid, which means it's picking up the sound from the front, not so much from the back. And what I would do with a singer-songwriter is I would switch, say, this one to be figure eight and start thinking about where it cancels. Because what I can do is now with a figure eight, I can get this really close to you, proximity-wise, for the vocal, but I'll just get this nice and loose. If I go like this, the side of the microphone is pointed directly at the guitar, which is going to almost completely cancel it.
Right.
Which means that even though it's really close, it's not going to get very much guitar and it's going to get a lot of vocal. Mm-hmm. Which is a bit of a studio magic trick.
So it's a figure of eight, so there's a bubble here,
and then a bubble
there, with the minimum point being at the
yes,
centre.
The minimum point is the important bit, that's there.
And that was just a bubble at the front.
Yeah, so I might move this one so it's pointed downwards, and from kind of here. I mean, if I had another figure 8 mic, I would do another figure 8 for the rejection thing again. Because one of the things about figure 8 is the rejection is real rejection, whereas like on a cardioid, it kind of cuts some stuff out. Let's get my behind off the camera. But that will pick up mostly guitar, but it will pick up some vocal. And I would definitely move this microphone around to get the right tone. But this one now should, in theory, especially if you start kind of leaning forward as you sing, which most singers kind of do.
I don't know, I had a lot for lunch, so I might sit back a little bit now. So should I sing something and play something? And
yeah, just a couple of bars or something, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, just some 8-minute odyssey?
Yeah, I'm going to dive into the...
Okay, you're going to have a listen on the headphones?
I'm going to have a quick listen and see if I'm right. Let's do it.
Okay. I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me. She showed me her room, isn't it good, Norwegian wood. I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me. She showed me her room, isn't it good, Norwegian wood.
Yes!
It worked.
Perfectly.
Wow.
But yeah, you should hear that back after we film this, because honestly, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah?
Huge difference.
Okay.
Like, there's almost no guitar in that vocal then.
I've never done that before.
An extra caveat, you need to be in a room that's not particularly reflective. This is quite a dead room. Because if you're in a really reflective room, it's going to bounce around the room straight into the back of the figure 8 mic.
And very quickly on that, what if people watching this don't have a treated room like this? What's the number one thing you do to ensure that you could boost your chances of getting something like this?
Find a nice sounding room. I mean, you can use a friend's front room. Do it in the local gym or spa, or outdoors. If the wind's not too bad and you've got a wind stopper, can be quite nice, because there's zero reflections if you're outside in a field. I mean, again, if you're filming like a folky kind of thing, you might have a nice music video filmed outside. Do it live. With the right mic polar patterns, you get all the control. You get a beautiful setting, you get great sound.
I think what I've learned, apart from what I've actually learned today, and I haven't heard this back yet, but is certainly to, if you're going to record something and you have a due date, a deadline, make sure you include in that time some room for experimentation and getting it right.
Yeah.
And probably learning the guitar part really well, which I had just sort of put together before this video. But getting it right from the instrumental point of view and the performance, and then getting it right from the tech side, and then nailing the take.
Yes.
Rather than rushing through everything and saying, that'll do.
Yeah. I always think of it as being different people.
Yeah,
like, be the songwriter,
and,
then be the engineer, then be the performer. And by separating them, I can go, I'm confident now this is going to sound great. Now, a 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, there you go, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned something. Thanks, Andy, for copyright striking my channel.
No worries. No, you can play it backwards and sum the dill.
It's all good. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Henning and the team at 42 Gear Street 5. Thanks for everybody. Thank you watching everybody for, and I will next see you in video time. Goodbye.
Ooh.
Dong.
I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me. She showed me her room, isn't it good, Norwegian